Good morning. Good morning, presidents, ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today for the first business roundtable between the European Union and Latin America and the Caribbean. I am Koen Doens, Director General at the European Commission, and I will be moderating this plenary session. All of you here are absolutely key in taking forward the Global Gateway Investment Agenda. Throughout the day, we will be discussing, we will have ample time to discuss the key strands of the investment agenda and explore opportunities for investment in various sectors. But before we start, just a few practical indications. The opening session, the keynote addresses, and the closing session are open to the press and can be followed online. The 7 roundtables are closed sessions, meaning that only the participants and those in the listening rooms will be able to follow them. These sessions are under Chatham House rules, so no attribution of specific comments can be made. Interpretation for everything is possible and available in English, in French, in Spanish, and in Portuguese. And now I would like to welcome the President of the European Commission, Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen.
Good morning to all of you. President Lula, Prime Minister Sánchez, President Goldfajn, President Díaz-Granados. It's such a great pleasure to welcome all of you here in Brussels. Today's summit marks a new beginning for an old friendship. But it's also a new beginning that builds on decades of a good friendship. Our two continents are brought together by shared culture, a shared belief in the UN Charter, but also by the vital role that business plays. Think of digital startups from Latin America that are expanding here in Europe in fields spanning from AI to farming. European investments are creating good jobs in Latin America. Latin American companies produce radioisotopes, and they are used for cancer treatments in European hospitals. We have investments of the European Union in Latin America in sectors ranging from finance to automotive, from chemicals to clean energy. Businesses are the lifeblood of our partnership, and they build the bridges that link our two continents. These connections have driven up for years trade and investment flows between our continents, but also technology transfer and technical cooperation and a new people-to-people agenda. But there's so much untapped potential. We can do so much more. And this is why I'm so pleased that the 2 days of our summit begin with this business roundtable. Latin America, the Caribbean, and Europe need each other more than ever before. The world we live in is more competitive, more conflictual than ever before, still reeling from the heavy toll of the COVID pandemic. The world is taking a hard impact from the Russian aggression against Ukraine. And this happens against the backdrop of China's growing assertiveness abroad. So what does it mean for our two continents? And especially, what does it mean for our businesses? It means that we need to make our economies more resilient to external shocks, and that we have to fight inequalities and poverty in our societies. It means that we need partners we can trust. We want to engage with investors and trade with countries who share common principles and common values, and who prove reliable in the short term, but also in the long term. Europe aspires to be the partner of choice to Latin America and the Caribbean, just like we choose to be a partner to the region. We believe that Europe's offer to the region is different and significant. We have the mutual interest in seeing Latin America, the Caribbean, and Europe unleash the full potential. We share the common interest in seeing both our industries grow, local value chains develop, and more people rise into the middle class. We do not just want to trade together, but we want to thrive together. And for all these reasons, we have decided to step up our cooperation. So today, I am glad to launch our investment agenda for Latin America and the Caribbean. We call it Global Gateway. Under the banner of Global Gateway, we propose to bring over 45 billion euros of high-quality European investment to Latin America and the Caribbean. Over 135 projects are already in the pipeline, from clean hydrogen to critical raw materials, from expanding the high-performance data cable network to even producing the most advanced mRNA vaccines. But only together can we agree on sectors and value chains to prioritize and how we can best boost these investments with skills, with standards, and with technical support. So let us use this summit to shape the investment agenda and to benefit on both sides of the Atlantic on our continents. Ladies and gentlemen, Global Gateway has not only the size to make a difference, but it lays out a new approach of how we want to invest in big infrastructure projects. European investments will come with a strong focus on creating local value chains. We think it's so important that the added value stays locally. So together, we can build supply chains that are resilient. And important is that this added value stays in Latin America and the Caribbean. This is also in our interest. And let me give you two examples that show why we have a common interest and shared ideas. The first example is clean hydrogen. Latin America and the Caribbean have a potential to become a global powerhouse for renewable energy. You have all the resources in abundance. Your wind and solar sectors are growing exponentially, also thanks to European investment. The natural next step now is to turn clean energy into clean hydrogen. On the one hand, clean hydrogen can easily be exported to other continents. And on the other hand, and crucially, clean hydrogen can also fuel new industries on your continent. Just imagine clean steel and concrete, clean fertilizer, clean trains and buses, all of them made in Latin America and the Caribbean. So your continent has the potential to be a global leader in the clean industry of tomorrow. Second example is critical raw materials. If we want to be successful in the green and the digital technologies, our industries need access to critical raw materials. And here too, Europe wants to be your partner of choice. Unlike other foreign investors, we are not only interested in investing in the pure extraction of the raw materials. We want to partner with you to build local capacity for processing, for making batteries, and for the final products like electric vehicles. And besides investment, we can contribute world-class technology and high-quality training for local workers. And this is precisely the kind of investment for which we created Global Gateway. Ladies and gentlemen, Europe wants to launch a new partnership with the region. And this is why today's summit is so important. For the first time in 8 years, the leaders of our two continents are coming together. We're coming together to discuss, among other things, a shared investment agenda for Latin America and the Caribbean. We now need to hear from you during this business roundtable about the sectors you want to focus on and the bottlenecks we need to address together. Not everything is easy. There will be hiccups and a bumpy road, but the investment is there, the political will is there, and people expect us to deliver. So we want that we can invest right where you need it the most. And as I said at the beginning, it is a new beginning of old friends for which we need to join forces. I wish you all a very good business roundtable. Thank you for coming to Brussels. It's good to have you here. Many thanks.
Thank you, President, for your welcoming address. And now I have the great honor to welcome the President of the Federative Republic of Brazil, His Excellency Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, and invite him for his welcoming remarks to the Business Roundtable.
Gracias. Very well. It's with great joy that I'm here, to be able to be here in this room, greeting the President of the European Commission, Madam Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the Government of Spain, Pedro Sánchez, and our President of the Inter-American Development Bank, Ilan Goldfajn, and our brother Executive President, CAF Development Bank of Latin American Executive President, Sergio Granados, and my dear Ambassador, Foreign Affairs Minister of the Government of Brazil, our dear Celso Amorim, and my dear Ambassador Pedro Miguel, Ambassador of Brazil in Spain, business men and women, all attendees, dear friends. I have great pleasure to participate in the opening of this business meeting, side by side of the President of the European Commission, of the Prime Minister of Spain, and of the presidents of the IDB and CAF. I believe that are the companies, the universities, and civil society that give life and continuity to the relations between countries. This meeting reaffirms that our entrepreneurs are fully engaged in the relaunching of this historical alliance based on the certainty that the success of one is fundamental for our common success. Pandemics, COVID-19 pandemics, beside the loss of millions of lives it it's unorganized and productive system in all around the planet. The climate change shows clearly the urgency to preserve biodiversity and ecosystems. The democracy crisis leads to hatred, disagreements, violence, intolerance, undermining the living conditions in society and the planning of economic activity. The war in the heart of Europe has launched over the world the uncertainties and channels for war purposes, resources that were essential for the economy and for social programs. The arms race makes it even more difficult to confront the climate change issue. Vis-à-vis all these challenges, it's responsibility of the rulers, businessmen and women, and workers to rebuild the road to prosperity, to go back to industrial production, investment, and jobs. The Latin American countries and the Caribbean countries will continue to perform a strategic role for Europe and for the world, because we are a region with great opportunities for investment and to enhance consumption. We are countries that demand investments in infrastructure, diversified logistics, social and urban infrastructure. We are civil societies that undertake strong social mobility, for which we have new and very dynamic domestic markets integrated by hundreds of millions of consumers. The European Union is the second largest trade partner of Brazil. Our trade flow could go beyond this year the landmark of $100 billion. The agreement between Mercosur and the European Union, which should be balanced, which intend to conclude this year, will open new horizons. We would like to have an agreement that will preserve the capacity of the different parties to respond to future and present challenges. Government procurement are a vital tool to network investments in infrastructure and sustain our industrial policy. The US and European Union are leading and already adopt industrial policies that are very ambitious, based in government procurement and domestic content. Brazil has a great domestic market of 203 million people with great capacity for consumption that is still weak and that will demand the enhancement of investments in consumer goods, inputs, and associated services. We will launch in the next days a new investment plan to confront the existing bottlenecks. After the last 6 years where we had a backwardness situation and stagnation, we will go back to create jobs of good quality, fight poverty, and to increase the income of the Brazilian families. The plan foresees going back to investments that were paralyzed, accelerating the ones that are underway and selecting new projects for investments. We will promote the modernization of our logistic infrastructure with investments in highways, railroads, hydroways, waterway projects, and ports and airports. Brazil has already an energy matrix of one of the most cleanest ones in the world. 87% of our electricity power already comes from renewable sources, against 27% of the world average, and 50% of all our energy is clean, while in the rest of the world the average is only 15%. And we will improve even better these figures because we are giving priority to the generation of solar energy, wind power, solar power, biomass, ethanol, and biodiesel. And it's also tremendous, our potential for green hydrogen production. We can also highlight new opportunities in urban mobility, basic sanitation, disaster prevention, low housing, financing, generating stimuli in the productive chain of transportation and construction. The extension of to the national territory of a network of high band with great capacity will serve as a basis for educational policies that we're trying to develop and prioritize in social inclusion and quality. An education of quality is a requirement for a growth that is based on technology generation and innovation, giving privilege to the knowledge economy. We will establish partnerships between government and the private sector in all these fields under public concessions and PPPs, private and public partnerships, and direct contracts. This new Brazil that will be more fair, with much more fairness and solidarity, will be rebuilt without giving up our commitments with the macroeconomic basis. The control of inflation and the balance of public spending are essential requirements to assure stability, a solid base for economic expansion and social progress. With the fiscal reform underway and tax reform underway, we're simplifying tax collection and making our economy more efficient. We have a robust financial system that will allow sustainable expansion of credit during the next years. Our high international hard currency reserves, today around $343 billion, makes us a safe buffer vis-à-vis external volatilities. When we launched this ambitious program of investment, I'm not thinking only and exclusively in my country. We don't want to be an island of prosperity. We will only grow in a sustainable way through the integration to our regional surroundings. In the last South American Leaders Summit meeting in May in Brasilia, capital of Brazil, I have proposed to update the project portfolio of the Planning and Infrastructure South American Council, reinforcing multimodality and prioritizing projects of high impact of physical and digital integration, especially in the border regions. When we built the Bio-Ocean corridor that links Central and West Brazil to the ports in the north of Chile, reducing the cost of our exports to the Asian markets and creating job and income for the interior of the Latin American or South American continent. When we hosted the summit meeting of the Amazon countries that will happen next August, we tried to network common initiatives for the protection and sustainable development of this biome with other 7 countries of South America in the Amazon region. We have a unique natural asset in our hands in terms of drinking water, biodiversity, and forests. This condition makes us very responsible in the management of this wealth for sustainable exploitation and preservation in an inclusive way, which is something that is a national imperative. In the previous terms, we reduced deforestation 80%. This time, we have taken the commitment to eliminate deforestation in the Amazon, zero deforestation till 2030. And then already in this semester, we managed to reduce deforestation in 34% vis-a-vis compared to last year. We're now launching the basis to re-industrialize the country with undertakings that will be less pollutant, with greater technology density and creation of jobs, green jobs and quality jobs. Brazil has come back to the international scenario to contribute to confront the challenges that our planet faces, such as climate changes and the increase of inequalities. We are going to prove, as we already did in the past, that it is possible to produce and to grow in a sustainable way and in an efficient way. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to send to the world a sign, a signal that the 2 regions of great strategic importance as Europe and Latin America and the Caribbean region are committed with a very promising agenda, a peace agenda of cooperation, of enhancing trade and investments that will create new jobs and sustainable growth. When we have a lot of money in the hands of very few, then we have income concentration and very few people consuming while many face difficulties. With a better income distribution and money in the hands of many, not few, we can make available resources on the base of society, increasing consumption and generating opportunities in services, in the manufacturing and agricultural industries. This is true in each one of our countries, and even more true when we think of this in global scale. Brazil is doing its part with a strategy for the long term, focus on credibility, predictability, and judicial stability. social inclusion and economic stability. Only this way that will be managed to develop in a different way our countries. These are the essential factors for us to build a future that is full of opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. And I would like to welcome now and invite on the podium our next speaker, His Excellency Pedro Sánchez, the President of the Government of Spain, which is holding the rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union.
En primer lugar,
First of all, dear Ursula, I'd like to thank you for organising this business forum, which is taking place in Brussels, in the capital of Europe, and also to thank you for this commitment you've shown, which is so firm, for the success of this European EU-CELAC Round Table and Summit with the 45 billion euros. So thank you very much, Ursula. You have always been so sound in external affairs and based on all our principles. Thank you, President Lula, for being here today in the inauguration. I believe that in Brazil, the leadership of Brazil in this area is essential in order for it to achieve success in today's summit, today and tomorrow. And I'm very aware of this, the extraordinary efforts you're making to be here today in Brussels. And also, congratulations to the presidents of the CAF and the IDB for the excellent work they've done. We started talking about this business forum and this summit in May of last year, and today we're beginning to see the results of this extraordinary effort, which we have all been making. So, dear representatives of European and Latin American companies and international financial institutions, the Spanish presidency of the EU has taken on a very very ambitious objective, which is to strengthen external relations between the EU and Latin America and the Caribbean. These are regions which, as Lula and the President of the Commission was saying, we have solid historical links with common values and interests. We have a shared vision of how to deal with the global challenges of humanity, and therefore we want to relaunch our trade and investment links. We want to strengthen the resilience of our economies. And with this objective, we are celebrating this summit, and I would like to mention some of the most important aspects of these. First of all, trade. Because the European Union and CELAC have balanced trade links, which is different from what we have with other parts of the world. EU-LAC have balanced links, which have grown enormously in the last few years, and now, currently, 300,000 million euros per year. And I think that our economies are complementary. Latin America and the Caribbean possess energy, abundant raw materials, sun, fertile soil, water, and 40% of biodiversity, 33% of water, fresh water in Latin America is present in Latin America. And therefore, President Lula, it's marvellous to hear you talk about the Amazon as you do. It's also marvellous to know that your government is going to protect this public good, such a global, of global importance. What can Europe bring to the table? Well, not only capital, technology, know-how to Latin America and the Caribbean, which they need in order to launch their economic development even more intensely. In order to take advantage of the complementarity of our two regions, I think it's important that both regions deepen our trade relations and our economic integration. Today, I can say that the ratification of the agreements with Chile and Mexico is very close, and this has a great deal to do with the leadership of the European Commission, and therefore we really believe that this will happen during this Spanish presidency of 6 months. And as regards the relationship between EU and Mercosur, after more than 20 years of negotiations, we believe that we now have a window of opportunity, dear President, to ratify it in this second half of 2023. And of course, Spain will always be side by side with those who want to close on this very important agreement, which is very important for both regions. Spanish government and the European Commission are working intensively to achieve an agreement on those environmental climate aspects which are still outstanding, so important, bearing in mind the sovereignty also of the countries of Mercosur. But we're also thinking of what this might involve, because we're talking about 94% of GDP of Latin America and Caribbean would be in the framework of free trade agreements with the EU, generating more jobs and more wealth, shared by both sides. As regards trade, secondly, I'd simply like to say that a few comments on the global gateway investment agenda. We know that Europe has increased its investment by 20% on last year, but Latin America and the Caribbean have also become an important investor into Europe. And here, there's a community, a business community, which represents these interests, represents the Latin American and Caribbean business community. $40,000 million per year in the last decade via the multilatinas. And Spain is obviously the first destination in Europe of this investment, but we want to expand the investment of Latin America and Caribbean in the rest of Europe. We believe that strengthening our economic relations demands a greater effort, greater investment from the European Union. And we agree this with the President of the European Commission. This is very important for the private sector. And here, the global gateway of the EU is going to play a very important role. And President von der Leyen referred to this. This is an agenda of strategic projects, concrete projects. We're not talking about abstract matters. These are concrete matters. And we'll look at some of these in a moment, accompanied by technical assistance, know-how, skills, and something very important, which is harmonisation of the regulatory framework. And Spain is committed to this agenda. Therefore, we have taken a step forward with the mobilisation of 240 billion euros in the coming months. And Spain and the other members of the EU will contribute, will play their part. And I very much welcome that we've achieved such a high figure as just been announced by the Commission. Over and above this effort, a key role will be played by the multilateral banks, the development banks, which are here present for the financing of these projects. And thirdly, I will conclude with this. We have to mobilise the private sector, the European businesses, which are present here today. Thank you very much for coming, are global leaders in many sectors. And they can bring to the region the capital, the technology, the know-how, the skills necessary for diversification of exports with the creation of jobs in the value chain on both sides of the Atlantic. And this with the greatest commitment and respect, as the President Lula said, of social standards, labour standards and environmental requirements. I will conclude by saying that EU and CELAC are now in a situation which I would describe as hopeful, and it can be improved. It can meet our necessities and interests in areas of critical raw materials, digitalisation, renewable energies, the reindustrialisation and social and economic cohesion of our territories. And therefore, I would encourage the companies here present to join this agenda, to support it. It's going to strengthen our economies. It's going to improve the welfare of our citizens, and it's going to create greater interdependence between two continents, two regions of the world which share values, interests, and also a multilateral vision of how to resolve the global challenges which we are now facing. I think that we can all win from a closer relationship, and that's what we're trying today, after 8 years, to try to relaunch this close links and to strengthen the links between both continents. I don't know any better way of beginning the week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. And our next speaker is Mr. Goldfajn. He's the president of the Inter-American Development Bank and co-host of today's Business Round Table. Thank you.
Good morning, bom dia, buenos dias, bonjour. Quero começar.
I'd like to start by greeting President Lula as well as the ministers that are present here. I'd like to also say how important it is that we're all here sharing this moment that's of great importance for our region and for our countries. President Sánchez, Spain has been a constant, strong partner of Brazil and Latin America and the Caribbean, and I'm sure that Spain's presidency of the European Union will raise our cooperation to new heights. Yesterday, we were all having discussions on strengthening our cooperation between our different institutions and associations.
Hosting this roundtable, a true honor, President Ursula von der Leyen with us. Your message today underscores the EU's commitment for renewing its partnership with Latin America. I will divide my remarks into 3 parts. First, some context. EU-LAC relations have not started today with Europe and with the IDB. I'll then discuss our shared priorities. Finally, I'll review some big opportunities for Europe and Latin America and how the IDB can help seize these opportunities. The Europe and Latin America Caribbean have a strong trade and economic relationship. Let me tell you why. Last year, EU and Latin America trade totaled 369 billion euros. Trade is well above pre-pandemic levels. The UN just announced that foreign direct investment in Latin America surged to a record $225 billion last year. And from that, European foreign investment in Latin America is bigger than India, China, and Japan combined. And nowhere has European support for Latin American development been clearer than, I'm glad to say, through the IDB. We have 22 non-regional member countries, 16 from Europe, 13 from the EU. European countries have shaped our strategy at the IDB, have donated funds, have co-financed projects, mobilized resources, and much more. Let me give you some examples. With the French Development Agency, we jointly financed 6.3 billion in social, climate, infrastructure, digitalization projects. Spain, Cooperation Fund for Water and Sanitation, has directly benefited 3 million people in Latin America and the Caribbean. The EU financed with us the Central American Digital Trade Platform, which reduces trades and promotes integration. In Peru, we have now, was just announced, the largest wind power plant, thanks to a collaboration between the private sector arm, the IDB Invest, and France Engie and European banks, private sector. In the past year alone, European Commission allocated 35.5 million in grants to projects from health to trade. There are many other examples. But it's time to be more ambitious. Today we heard the new agenda to strengthen EU-LAC ties from President von der Leyen. You have said before that the strategic partnership is more important than ever. We cannot agree more. The strategic partnership can lead us to more clean energy, faster green transition, better protected biodiversity, and halt deforestation, stronger, more diverse, more productive economic integration, digitalization. And as President Lula has said, more equality in several dimensions. We cannot forget that. If you wonder if these benefits are for the region, for Latin America and Caribbean, I must tell you, no, it's for both regions. Several of our shocks, including the Russia's invasion of Ukraine, brought global challenges, including food and energy security, to the top of the agenda in both regions. I want to tell you, Latin America and the Caribbean could be an important part of the solution to global challenges. This makes the new opportunities not only necessary, but attractive to all of you from the private sector. We have one of the world's largest democracies in Latin America, and that ties our historical and cultural ties with Europe. This is a time of aligned priorities. So let me tell you what are the IDB's priorities. Social issues, including poverty, inequality, food security, education, health, infrastructure, physical and digital, to boost productivity and for regional integration. Climate, mitigation, adaptation, including the green transition, and don't forget the importance of the Amazon. We need more private sector involvement, and I'm glad that you are here. This is all part of a broader vision for the region. We have to reposition Latin America as part of the solution to its own challenges, but also global challenges. Two examples that were said before. Latin America and Caribbean is home to 2/3 of the world's lithium, 38% of copper. It's crucial for the green transition. We already have, on average, 30% of Latin America's total energy, much larger than any other place, double the world average. With the right investment, we can be the global source of clean energy. Just the second example, food security. We are already the world's top net food exporter, but with the right incentive and the right framework, we can produce more than 8 times more and feed the world. Today, I must say our region stands at a crossroads. Never before have our region been better positioned to help each other address our biggest challenges. The IDB is and will continue to be the partner of choice of the European Commission team, Europe Development Initiatives in Latin America. We have jointly mobilized the European Fund for Sustainable Development plus Guarantee Program. As partner of choice in the past month, we have been working closely with the EU to identify several projects aligned with the EU's global agenda investment, and we will continue to do so. We applaud these initiatives, and together with our partners, CAF, we will strengthen it. We are built of years of experience in Latin America, since Juscelino Kubitschek created the IDB in '59. We are creating innovative financial instruments to mobilize capital, to be the conduit of investments to Latin America, and maximize the impact of every euro in Latin America. Last month, for example, in terms of innovation, we helped Ecuador to do the world's largest debt for nature conversion. We have pioneered, like in Uruguay, the sustainability-linked bonds. Germany helped us launch the Green Bond Transparency Platform, which covers 75% of the region issuance. We now need to simplify, scale these instruments. We need more concessional and more blended finances. We want to work with Europe to explore guarantees, redistribute risk, including for protecting the Amazon. Presidente Lula, nós aplaudimos.
We welcome the new leadership of Brazil in the irreplaceable part of the world that is the Amazon.
We applaud Brazil's new leadership in the Amazon and other places. The IDB has just launched Amazonia Forever. That's Minister Marina da Silva hint. Amazonia para sempre. Amazonia para siempre. This is an umbrella holistic regional program to boost diversity by focusing on people and the bioeconomy and the infrastructure. It's a program to coordinate several existing initiatives, including IDB's own Amazonia initiative. This own initiative, we already have Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, Switzerland, the UK, and all European members contributing to the Amazon initiative. But we want to be broader. We want a regional program, Amazonia para siempre. And the private sector has a key role in our strategic relationship. We have mobilized from the private sector only last year, from the IDB Invest, 3.1 billion, just IDB Invest, mobilizing that. But our collaboration with the private sector goes far beyond financing and capital. We have knowledge, we have technical assistance, we can do all of that, creating job opportunity and increasing the standard of living of people in Latin America, Caribbean, especially women and other communities. The private sector experience and innovation is key in advancing digitalization and climate action. So we want to ensure that not only we have good investment opportunities, but we are collaborating in a truly matter. What we need is to increase development impact. So let me conclude here with my main messages. For the European business leaders, now is the time to engage more in Latin America and the Caribbean. Second, there's a great opportunity in Latin America because the region is uniquely positioned to be part of the solutions to its own challenges, but to the global challenges like climate change, food security, biodiversity. Third, IDB is to prepare to be your partner, both European and public and private. And we all have the potential to take EU, Latin America, and Caribbean relationship to a new level, and doing so to enhance impact and help both of our regions solve our challenges. I want to thank the host, the co-host, again, and everyone in attendance. I wish all of you productive discussions today and at the summit. Thank you. Gracias. Muito obrigado. Que tenham...
Thank you, and I wish your conference every success.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, I would like to invite to the podium Mr. Díaz-Granados, the Executive President of the Development Bank of Latin America and also co-host of the Business Round Table.
Su Excelencia.
Your Excellence, President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, His Excellency, President of the Federative Republic of Brazil, Mr. Lula da Silva, His Excellency Prime Minister of Spain, Pedro Sánchez, President of the IDB, ambassadors, President Oya, Chancellors, thank you very much for attending today. I would like to start by thanking Mr. Sánchez, Mr. Lula and Madam von der Leyen for their excellent introductions. It's an honour to be here today, and my colleague Ilan Goldfajn and the head of the team of the IDB and CAF development teams who have provided support that was vital for this meeting to be held. Being in Brussels reminds me of what Jean Monnet said, a pioneer of Europe. He called on everybody to be ambitious, and he said we have to decide whether people are ambitious for themselves or for what they want to achieve. After 8 years where we've had a lack of political dialogue and a political vacuum, now Latin America and Europe need to be more ambitious and need to be more involved in our pathway to sustainability and progress. We're living turbulent times, as we've heard, and our citizens are expecting concrete results from these high-level meetings. Now is the time to speed up our activities, what we are doing, and we need to redefine our bi-regional relationship. To a great extent, the relationship between the EU and the LAC countries has, in fact, been a little bit one-sided up until now. We have done activities in certain countries, in certain ecosystems, in certain areas, and that is what has defined the trade relationship and development and sustainability that we have had so far, but that has left gaps. The LAC countries have a great deal that they can provide for the present and future of Europe, and similarly, as Mr. Sánchez and Madam van der Leyen said, Europe has the capacity to actually help our regions as a whole, to benefit our citizens and to benefit the planet. In this ambition of achieving things, I welcome what Madam van der Leyen has said of a financial allocation of 45 billion aimed at reducing poverty and inequality and ensuring that we move to a fair green transition, and also ensuring we have a digital transition which can lead to more inclusive, sustainable transitions. We have an immense opportunity ahead of us to unite and to make progress against climate change, and investing in innovation in new materials, renewable energy, digital services, electromobility, and a new role for raw materials with the transfer of technology and strengthening our industry. And what Madam van der Leyen said was quite right and was very timely for the LAC countries. We don't want the LAC countries to be seen as an area where all we do is extract raw materials, but rather as a partner in solving global challenges. Partner, not just a supplier of raw materials. The same goes for the digital transition. We have to ensure that we have proper connectivity. We need to work on cybersecurity so that we can have digital solutions that will underpin our democratic systems. And the use of such technology in education systems, health systems, and corporate systems is vital. We have to show that we're ambitious about what we can achieve, as Mr. Monet said, and that's what the Global Gateway is. It's one of the main vectors being used by our European partners and the IDB. 102 national and regional initiatives have been prepared to ensure connectivity to 85% of Colombians in the rural area by 2026, and helping to produce hydrogen in Chile and Uruguay, ensuring sustainability in San Jose, in Quinto, in Montevideo, in Sao Paulo, and also ensuring that we have more renewable energy in Jamaica, as we were discussing with the Prime Minister this morning. We also need to provide clean water, and we also need to reduce child malnutrition in Ecuador, for example. We're thinking about how we can use innovative financial instruments such as guarantees, hedging, loans, blends, all kinds of instruments to ensure progress. For this to happen, it's vital that we have partners such as the European Central Bank and the directors of the International Monetary Fund. We are needing to be more audacious in designing financial instruments that can be used to help countries. And we, in June, actually had President Lula, President Macron, amongst others, at a high-level financial meeting last month. And the Financing in Common project is intended to accelerate the development and use of more financial instruments. The LAC countries have proven capacity when it comes to putting forward ideas and solutions. This bank, for example, actually was set up in 1968 as an bank that would finance development in Latin American countries. And that's what we need, a bank that is of the region, for the region, that works with its partners. And more than Spain and Portugal have been involved in this for more than 20 years to ensure that the LAC countries actually have the financing they need. And this benefits not just them, but also Europe. Sustainable development is something that actually grew out of the Rio +20 summit in the LAC region. And that led to the strategic compass. Now, we see the Global Gateway as a tool whereby we can achieve the SDG goals by 2030. The Spanish presidency of the Council of the European Union, it shares this vision, this long-term vision, and actually doesn't want to see countries set against each other, but working together. That's the kind of ambition we should have. And I would thank Mr. Sánchez again for having called an unprecedented meeting of all the economics and finance ministers, which will take place in September in Santiago de Compostela. And I would like to thank the Prime Minister that has actually called for meetings of development banks too to be involved. This is going to be an initiative of the World Bank, the IMF and us, so that we can actually achieve, as Jean Monnet said. We are going to be working with our counterparts as well as the CELAC chairs to ensure our agenda is actually achieved. President van der Leyen, the last time I was in this building was 11 years ago with the Trade Minister of Colombia, where my Peruvian colleague actually signed the free trade agreement. 11 years afterwards, this agreement provides legal certainty in terms of the rules for both sides when it comes to trade. I listened to what President Lula said. For us to have a Mercosur agreement, we need not just optimism, but we also need to look to the future. And as Mr. Sánchez said, that in fact we have to look at the GDP that we have, that is trade between the two blocs as well as with the US. But Mercosur agreement will lead to more ambitious and deeper trade relationships. And that will mean that, as Mr. Lula has said, we will actually have a closer relationship. And we also have to bear in mind the tendering procedure launched by President Lula in May for regional integration and interconnectivity. That is one reason why Latin America is important, because it's an economic powerhouse with millions of inhabitants and a very large GDP. We all hope that, in fact, we will be able to live up to the level of ambition that we've set ourselves and that we can achieve things together. We're at a turning point for democracy, and we are seeing social movements in Europe and in Latin America that show this. And at times when, in fact, Europe has faced difficult times, Latin America has been there for us. And there have been a lot of people who left Europe, all the different countries 100 years ago, for Latin America, and who now their equivalents are fighting for a safer country. Going back to Jean Monnet, we may know who we are, but we are facing challenges in our existence which are likely to grow, and we can only face those if we face them together. Latin American countries, Caribbean countries, and European countries. Such a united stand is something that we can show to the rest of the world. We can show to the private sector, the banks, to sub-regional governments, that we can, in fact, design a better world for all of us. Working together is something that reflects our commitments, and we need the kind of decisions that will lead to a changing point in history. And CAF, as a sub-regional bank, CAF, as a part of CELAC, which promotes the interests of LAC countries, is more than ready and willing to work with all of you. Thank you for your attention.
So with this, we've come to the end, but I would like to ask the presidents indeed to go on stage.